Okay, let's get started. We're going to be learning Maseches Shabbos Daf Nun Daled, and continuing in a lot of the dialogues that deal with B'ma behema yotza u'b'ma behema eno yotza. What is an animal allowed to go into a reshus harabim with? Again, just to review, rosh prakim, just general brush strokes, in that we have an iser deoraisa potentially under certain circumstances where one can violate the iser of shvisas behemta, where our animal does malacha on our behalf, and if we do so in certain ways, we could really be violating some serious isura doraisa. Again, we live in cities that have eruv, so it's less problematic in general. But should one be in a place which is a reshus harabim doraisa, so then we could be talking about serious shilas and halacha. We're going to get started tonight about 10-12 lines from the bottom on Nun Gimel Amud Beis. And there we're going to start with the two dots that say Zecharim Yotzin Levuvin, that the males are allowed to go out Levuvin. Asks the Gemara, my Levuvin, what does it mean Levuvin? Amar Rav Huna Tosri, that they can go out in pairs, where Tosar means pairs. My Mashma Dahai Levuvin Lishna de Kruvehu. From where do you see that this word Levuvin has any indications of two being close to one another, that you could even argue that it means that there's two people, because the Mishnah said Levuvin. Answers the Gemara, Dechsiv Libavtani Achosi Kala, a pasuk from Shir Hashirim Libavtani Achosi Kala, that our love, Libavtani, the two of us together, implying that we're talking about pairs. So that's answer number one, that when the Mishnah says that Zecharim are Yotz and Levuvin, that we are referring to animals that are allowed to go out in pairs. Then says the Gemara, answer number two, Ula Amar, or Shekoshrin Lahem Keneged Libam, they would give these animals a leather, it was basically like a vest of some kind that would cover their chest, like a bulletproof vest. So this was to avoid animals. They had a vest that would cover over their hearts. Let's continue reading in the Gemara what Ula was talking about. So they would take this leather piece of leather and put it over the chest against their hearts, and libam and levuvin, same language. That's what the Mishnah is referring to. Because wolves apparently would attack specifically there. They'd attack from underneath and they'd go right for the heart. So they would be wearing these garments that the Zecharim are Yotz and Levuvin. They can wear a covering over their heart so that the Ze'ev, that the wolf can't get to them. So it says the Gemara, Ze'evim ha-Zecharim nafle and a-kevos lo nafle. What, only by Zecharim, only the male could wear this covering over their heart? What about the females? Like you think that a wolf is going to say, oh, yeah, chivalry? That's ridiculous. Why only Zecharim are Yotz and Levuvin? Should be women too. Should be the Nekevos as well. Answers the Gemara, Mishum Damasku Beresh Idra. The reason why is because the men lead the pack. The men typically would be more protective, and when they were traveling in a herd, the men would be in front. Asks the Gemara, Uze'evim Beresh Idra Nafle, Besov Idra Lo Nafle. You think they're going to be polite and they're only gonna fight the herd from the beginning? They're going to go one animal at a time, and all the men were in front. That's not how it works. Besov Idra Lo Nafle. You don't think they're going to attack from the back of the herd? Of course they will. Ela Mishum Deshamne. It must be that the males had more fat on them. They were juicier. They were more flavorful. So therefore, that's why the men were allowed to wear the levuvim, but there was no requirement or no heter for the females, for the nekevos, to wear a levuv, because they were less likely to be attacked. Says the Gemara, uvin nekevos like a shamne. There isn't one fat nekeva. Of course, animals are fat sometimes. Who cares about the gender of the animal? Says the Gemara, Visu. Not only that, Mi yade ben hani lahani. You think the ze'ev, the animal that's about to go and attack, you think he's distinguishing based on their BMI? You're a little bit thin. I'm not going to go for you. I'm only going to go for the animals that have shaman, that are fatter. They're animals. They're not looking with such nuance. So it can't be that it's based on the fat. Ella mishum dezakve chotmaihu umasku kidavu. Dezakve chotmaihu. They straighten up, or they lift up their noses. So when the animals that were being attacked, the animals we're discussing now from our Mishnah, the Zecharim, when they were being attacked, they would raise up their noses a little bit and made themselves more noticeable, and they'd look over at the Ze'ev when they were being attacked, and therefore that's why they were the ones who had the heter to wear the levuvin, because they made themselves a little bit more noticeable. So that was answer number one in regards to the nekevos, as to why it was not the females, because the males were kind of standing tall and proud and showing themselves. Answer number two, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Orshe Koshrin Lahem Tachas Zachrusan Kedei Shelo Lo Yalu Al Hanekevos. He said, we're not even talking about we're not even talking about over the heart. That's not what it means. We are talking about the fact that there was a piece of material that would cover over the animal's reproductive organs so that they would not procreate when they were out in the wild. If this was a private animal and someone wanted to keep it that way, so then that's what this levuvin was, to make sure that the animals wouldn't procreate. Mimai, where do we know this from? This idea that an animal was going to be covered from the ability to procreate, to be intimate with other animals, says the Gemara, 4 lines from the bottom, Nun Gimel Amud Beis, Midikatani Seifa v'Harachelim Yotzos Shechuzos. Later, we saw that Rechelim, that these other animals, they were allowed to go out shechuzos. What is shechuzos? My shechuzos, she'ochsin ha'al shelahen lemala kadesh yalo alein zacharim. So this was the opposite. This was the opposite by the Rechelim, when they wanted the animals to procreate, when they wanted the animals to have their own children. So they would make sure that the tail that protruded from the back of the animal was set in such a way that the males knew that she was then available for procreation. So that is shechuzos. So there we said Rachelim yotzos shechuzos, that's how the Rachelos were set up. They were allowed to go out that way with the tails adjusted away from their body. So then the Gemara says, Reisha kadesh lo yalu ala nekevos, v'seifa kadesh yalu alein zacharim. So there are just different ways to treat the animals, and both of them are permissible going out into public. The males were allowed to have the levuvin that covered their private parts, and the nekevos were specifically revealed. Asks the Gemara, hold on one second. The word shechuzos is not a very common word. How do you know that the word shechuzos was a reference to this animal, to the Rachel, to this animal being more revealed? Asks the Gemara, "My mashma dahai shechuzos lishno de galuyehu." How do you know that the word shechuzos is a reference to being more revealed? Answers the Gemara with a pasuk tichsiv, the ine ishto likraso shis zona unsores lev shis zona. Take a look at Rashi. Notri kon de shechuzos. This is the shis and the zona. So you can see those two words were put together for shechuzos. We don't know where the ches comes from, but notricons don't always have notricons. If you're not familiar, a notricon is basically one word that is a combination of many words. So here, the word that we're looking at is shechuzos, and where the Gemara is telling us that the word shechuzos is comprised of the two words of shis zona, which means that the animal is going to be revealed. So it says Rashi on the top, the second Rashi on the page, shis, what does that word mean? Beis haboshes, that is a totally undressed, and a zona is a woman who is a prostitute. So we see the reference here of being revealed, and that's how the Gemara determines that the word shechuzos means to be revealed for the sake of procreation. Harachelim yotzos kivulos. My kivulos, what does that mean on the top of Nun Daled Amud Aleph? What does it mean, kivulos? Shemechablen eileha shalahen lemata kedesh shelo ya'alu alein zacharim. So we saw that shechuzos means that the Rachel, that this animal was more revealed for intimacy, and here is the opposite. They're kivulos, that they're covered. Shemechablen, that they're covered. Elia, its tail, shalahen, the mata, downward, covering the anatomy, so that there would be no interest of the males. My mashma dahai kabul lishna delo avid perehu. From where do we know that the word kabul, from the word kabulos, indicates that this is not a time for procreation? This is the story in Tanakh about Hiram, where he was given cities, and he said, "What kind of cities are these?" So he didn't like the cities that he was given as a gift. I believe this was from Shlomo. Let me just look at where this is. I can't remember if it's Shlomo or I think it's from Shlomo. It says the Gemara, what was he complaining about? My Eretz Kabul. What was it about these lands that he was bothered by, that the pasuk uses the word Kabul? Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, Shahayu ba b'nei Adam shemechubalim. These people were very wealthy. It was a very wealthy community, and he didn't want a very wealthy community. Says the Gemara, Amar le Rava, it was not good in his eyes. Why wasn't it good in his eyes? You are given a city by someone as a gift, and the city is filled with wealthy people. You should look at it as an opportunity to collect taxes. Why are you looking at this as a negative? Answers the Gemara, Amar le, this is not the kind of city you want. Kevan de atire umefanke lo avde avidita. Atire, tough and shin in Aramaic are interchangeable. Ashire, they're wealthy. Umefanke, a mefunak is someone who's very sensitive, someone who's prissy and like a little bit spoiled. So these people, that's not the kind of people you want in your city. Lo avidavita, they're not going to do anything. They're a bunch of lazy people. They have everything they need. They don't need to work, so they're going to sit back and kick up their feet and not do anything in the city. So Hiram, he was not excited about that at all. He wasn't excited about that at all. So that's why The city was called Kavulos. Rav Nachman on Bar Yitzchak Amar, Eretz Chomtin Haisa. The reason why he didn't like the land was because it was Chomtin. Chomtin, the fourth line of Rashi, what does Chomtin mean? Malcha o misbakas. The land was very salty and the land would crack a lot because it was so dry. So then the Gemara continues, V'amai kari la kavul. Why was this land called kavul? We know why the previous opinion called it kavul, because they had all this money. Why is this Shita, who says that the land was so salty, why would he say that this was called kavul? It says the Gemara, the mishtarga bakara ad kavla, that when one would walk through the ground, they had salt up to their ankles. The mishtarga bakara ad kavla. And here also that next Rashi, the fourth line down, says the mishtarga bakara tovas ba regel. You would sink in. It would be, the ground was not the kind of ground you'd want to live in. Ad kavla, the next Rashi, perakatachton shekorin kuyila. This is a reference, of course, to one's ankle. Ad kavla. This is not the kind of land that's fertile. It was very salty, and it was the kind of land that your feet would fall into the cracks, and therefore it was not a land that was fertile. So that's how the word Kabul came up. Either way, you classify the answer, but in our case, we were referring to the animals that were kavulos, and then we saw that it meant covered. Your ankles were covered. So these are all answers as to how the word Kabul, as referenced by the Rechelos Yotzos Kavulos, that their anatomies were covered to prevent procreation. So how do we know that it means covered? So these are the answers that are given. At the two dots, about a third of the way down, says the Gemara, kavunos. This is still a different word. We learned about kavulos. My kavunos. What does the word kavunos mean? Says the Gemara, shemechavnin oso lemelas. You were covering up the fresh wool. Take a look at Rashi. Dibur hamaschal shemechavnin. It's 6 lines down from the top. Dibur hamaschal shemechavnin. Koshrin beged svivo biyom shenolad. You would cover the animal with a garment on the day that it was born. Why? Shetzimro nuki umishamro timro shelo yitanef, because the wool was perfectly clean, and you wanted to make sure that it stayed that way. So you're saran wrapping, quote unquote, you're saran wrapping this baby to make sure that the wool stays perfectly clean. So that's what the word kavunos means back in the Gemara. My kavunos shemechavnen. Osola melas. Melas is a reference to the wool at a very, very early phase. Keditnan. How do we know that this is the case? Because we have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says se'es, when we're referring to a negat saras, what does se'es mean? What color was it? Kitsemer lavan. It was like white wool. My tsemer lavan. What does white wool? What is that? What is that talking about? Amar Abibi barabai kitsemer naki ben yomo. This is like the wool of a brand new baby that has wool. Not a human, but an animal, of course. Shemechav and then also the melas. So we're allowed to cover over the melas. We're allowed to cover over the new wool of this baby. V'aizim yotzos tzeruros. We said in our Mishnah that it's okay for an aiz, for a goat, to go out tzeruros with the udders covered tightly. Says the Gemara, Idmar. Rav Amar Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel Amar Halacha Rabbi Yossi. Rav says that the halacha in our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda, and Shmuel argues that it is like the Shita of Rabbi Yossi. So if you flip back one page to the bottom of Nun Beis and Mud Beis, you'll see on the bottom what these two Shitas are. Shita number 1, 2 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Yossi Oser, he forbade everything except for a chelim that could go out kavunos, except for a rachel that was allowed to go out with the wool covered. And Rabbi Yehuda, the last line on Nun Beis and Mud Beis, this is a machlokas Rav and Shmuel about how we paskin from these two Tanaim. Rabbi Yehuda says, they're allowed to go out with the udders covered as long as it was liyabesh, to make sure that they don't have more milk, but not if it was to collect milk. And this machlokas carried over to the times of Rav and Shmuel, which was I don't know exactly when these Amoraim lived, when these Tanaim lived, but probably a good couple hundred years, 100, 200 years before probably. Some people say no. The Rav and Shmuel are not arguing about Rabbi Yehuda's Shita and Rabbi Yossi's Shita. This is their own. This is their own Shita. What is it that they're arguing about? The same information. Rav Amar Yabesh Mutter V'lo L'chalev. He says that it's permissible for an animal to go out tsuroros with the udders covered, liyabesh, to dry out the animal but not to collect milk. U'shmuel Amar echad zeh ve'echad zeh aser, like the Shita of Rabbi Yossi. So you could see their Shitas playing throughout. The machlokas here is when, this is just again a historical question of when did Rav and Shmuel discuss this? Were they discussing it in a vacuum? and they were only discussing whether or not it's mutter to cover the tzuroros, and they weren't speaking about Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. That's the second approach. And the first approach was, yes, on the Mishnah that we had, Rav and Shmuel had a machlokas. And here there's still a third approach. Some say that it was specifically on these words of the Mishnah. Izim yotzos tzuroros liyabesh avalo lechalev. There's a new Mishnah that we have yet to learn. When it comes to izim, and we say that the animal can go out to roros, that it's allowed to be wrapped up. There's no problem with the udders being wrapped up. That's the Tanakama. However, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer kach halacha, that may be the din. How can you distinguish and tell how tight the brace is, how tight the bandaging is around the udder? You have no way of knowing that. And because of that, therefore, mitoch she'ein makirin echad zeh ve'echad zeh aser, even though Ladina, technically it's true that we could make a distinction between covering the udders tightly, tzuroros, which is to dry them out, liyabesh, versus doing so, l'chalad, to collect the milk, even though halacha l'maisa, that is the distinction to be made. But because, again, we saw this earlier in the Maseches as well, in kena sata devarecha l'shirin, some people put on the garment tighter, some people put it on looser, some people tie their shoes very tight, some people tie their shoes not so tight. So how can you determine how tightly a person's putting on this garment that's covering the udders? And because of that, says Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, we're going to be machmir umitoch she'en makir nechad zeh ve'echad zeh as. Amar Shmuel, and on this we had a machlokas, on this shita. Amar Shmuel va'amri lo Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that Shmuel was of the opinion that we follow Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Yasa Ravin, Amar Rav Yochanan, halacha ketana kama, and that's the machlokas there in regards to whether or not we follow the Tanakama or Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So a bunch of different varieties as to how this machlokas plays out, but it certainly was a machlokas in regards to the udders, with a variety of opinions and a lack of clarity even in the times of the Amoraim as to how one would be able to place a garment appropriately on the udders of an animal without it being problematic halachically. So we learned in this Mishnah, but in the previous Mishnah about b'ma behema yotza, we do allow animals to wear certain things out. Now let's learn what an animal is not allowed to wear out. New Mishnah, a little bit more than halfway down on Nun Dalet Amud Aleph, says the Mishnah as follows: Ubame eno yotza, with what is a person not allowed to, what is an animal not allowed to go out with? So says the Gemara, lo yotze gamal b'mitul teles. Mitul teles, Rashi has a machlokas here about what a mitul teles is. If you take a look at Rashi, mitul teles, the first on the Mishnah, about a third of the way down, about 5 inches above where we are, the first answer he says is it's something that goes tachas zinavo, it's like a brace that goes underneath the tail. And the second answer is a word that we're familiar with from yesterday, which is that it's a mardas, and Rashi says that this is appropriate. He says it's talking about a mardas. What was a mardas? So yesterday we said that a mardas is the padding, it's the blanket that goes underneath the saddle. So we're going to go with that translation of Rashi as we continue learning this Gemara. Says the Gemara, a gamal, yesterday we were talking about a chamor. A donkey, the mardas, is permissible according to Rav and Shmuel. So here, that's what we saw yesterday. Here, what we're saying about a gamal, about a camel, is that lo yetze gamal b'mitul teles, that a camel, we're not allowed to have the animal go out with the padded blanket on top of it. Lo akud velo ragul, an animal cannot go out with a variety of different ways that the legs will be tied. Akud is one way, from the word akedas yitzchak, velo ragul, talking about their legs being tied in a certain way. We'll get into that a little bit later. And continues the Mishnah here, v'chein sha'ar kol behemos. These halachos apply to all kinds of behemos. It's not just a question of this animal that we're talking about a gamal. It applies to a variety of animals. If you've ever been to Eretz Yisrael and you've gone on some type of tour where you were riding a camel, or you were going to go on a program like that, you would see that one person could move 10, 15 camels just by pulling the front rope on the front camel, and there was another one from the back of one camel to the next, and so forth. A whole train of camels, one after the next. Says the Mishnah, Lo yikshor gemalim zeba zeba yimshoch. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. You're not allowed to pull, let's say, 10 or however many camels, one after the other, with one string pulling the front one and all subsequent animals to join. However, you can still pull 10. That's not a problem. But you need to hold all 10 leashes in one hand, in your hands, I should say. That's the only way to do it. You cannot drag them along one at a time. However, you have to make sure that you don't combine all of the ropes together. I don't know if this is a reference to a braid or to some type of knot. You can hold them, like let's say you have 10 ropes in your hand and you're just holding them like 10 ropes. Like, okay, no problem. But you can't really combine them together in a meaningful way. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in a source in the Tanaim, Lo Yetze Hagamal b'mitol teles Akshur Lo Bizanvo, that one, a camel is Lo Yatza Hagamal b'mitol teles. You're not allowed to go out with a mitol teles that is Kshur Lo Bizanvo, that is tied onto the tail. However, Aval Yotehu b'mitol teles Akshur Bizanvo uvechutraso. The chutra is the hump of the camel on its back, of course, and the halacha is not different than our Mishnah, but in addition to our Mishnah, that if the mitol teles, if the mardas, this blanket that we're putting on the animal, is connected to both the tail and to the hump of the animal, so then it's permissible for the animal to go out that way. Amar Rabbi bar Rav Huna, Yotze Hagamal b'mitol teles akshur la b'shil yasa. This is also true for a placenta, for an animal that's delivering, that if the mitol teles, if the mardas, the blanket is connected to the shilyasa as well, to the shilya, then it's permissible as well. The Mishnah had said that it's not appropriate for a gamal to go out, akud and ragul. What do these terminologies mean? So it says the Gemara as follows: we're 2/3, a little bit more than 2/3 of the way down, 3/4 of the way down at the two dots, nun daled amud aleph, lo akud velo ragul, not tied up in this way and not with your feet. Amar Yehuda akud, akedas yad v'regel ki Yitzchak ben Avram. When the Mishnah says akud, it means that he was tied up hand to foot, as was Yitzchak ben Avram. So that's how he was tied up. It wasn't random. It wasn't just tied down to a mizbeach. His right hand was tied to his right foot, and his left hand was tied to his left foot. That's how they were done. That's how they were tied. That's how he was tied, I should say. So it's Ki Yitzchak ben Avram. Ragul, what does that phrase mean? Shelo yikov yado al gabe zero v'yikshor. So animals, much like we do, we have an elbow. So if the animal's arm was like this, it was tied around like this, so he couldn't undo that last part of his arm. What we would call our forearm would be trapped. So the bottommost part, not the foot itself, but I guess the equivalent of the calf, the calf muscle on the animal was folded over and then it was tied down. So that's what ragul means according to this explanation of the Gemara. So that is what the Mishnah said here. So let's see how the Gemara continues here. It says the Gemara, Meisive, I have a source in the Tanaim that doesn't agree with our assessment of what we just said about akud and ragul. Akud, shtei yodayim v'shtei raglayim. It's not right hand to right foot and left hand to left foot. It's all four. Shtei yodayim v'shtei raglayim. And not only that, ragul, let's see what this is. How do we define ragul? Shelo yikov yado al gabe zero v'yikshor. So that's the same. Then ragul is the same, but basically it's a kasha on akud because we've defined akud in two different ways. So which one is it? Is it akud right hand to right foot, or is it not that way? It's just hands and feet all combined and into one. So then the Gemara says here as follows. The Gemara says, Hu de Amar ki haitana. He's talking about a different shita. The Tanya, akud akedas yad v'regel, O shtei yadayim v'shtei raglayim. There's another sheet on the time. This is our third sheet of what akud means, of what it means to tie it up. To be tied up, the first is that it's right hand to right foot, left hand to left foot. The second is that the hands and the feet are all tied together. And the third is this one, shtei yadayim v'shtei raglayim. It's a mixture. It could be either or. And ragul was, again, for the third time, the same. Shelo yikov yado al gabe zero v'yikshor. Says the Gemara, v'akati lo dami. It's still not similar to our shita. We need to see an exclusive shita that akud means right hand to right foot, left hand to left foot. We haven't seen that yet. Bishlama reisha, v'seifa nicha, mitziasa kashya. So this requires Rashi. Difficult to understand. What's the reisha? What's the seifa? And what's the mitziasa? So it says the Gemara. We understand the reisha and we understand the seifa, the beginning and the end. Nicha, got it. But mitziasa kasha. So let's take a look at Rashi just to the right of us. Dibur hamaskal reisha v'seifa nicha. Rashi says, Kid Rabbi Yehuda. We understand the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, who is in our what's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda, starting at the two dots, who said that akud is as we said, that it's yad v'regel ki Yitzchak ben Avram. That we understand. Aval mitziyasa de katani o shtei yadayim o shtei raglayim kasha. The middle shita doesn't work for anybody really because it's quoting from both shitas. It's a little bit of everything. So that's what mitziyasa kasha means, is that we've seen three sources. The middle one is very confusing. The source that says that akud could mean either right hand to right foot, left hand to left foot, or that all of them are tied together. So that's the Gemara's question. Kasha, Ella, Huda Amar Ki Tana. It must be that he holds like the following Tana. This is how our Mishnah holds and what Rabbi Huda is talking about. Akud Akedas Yad Regel Yitzchak ben Avram, Ragul Shalo Yikov Yado Al Gabe Zero V'Yikshor. So Sikum Hadvarim, there are a lot of different shitas as to what akud means. As we've seen, 3 different explanations of what akud means for the legs to be tied up. Our Mishnah that's speaking about animals that are tied up in this way, where they're not allowed to go out this way. So that's talking about a case of Yitzchak ben Abraham, where it's the right leg to the right hand and the left leg to the left hand, and that is how we define akud. The Gemara said, "Lo yikshor gemalim," you're not allowed to create a whole chain, a train of camels, one to the next, where you're only holding the front rope, and camel number 1 is connected to camel number 2 by a rope, and 3 to 4, and so forth and so on. So the Gemara here says 10 lines from the bottom. What's the reason why you're not allowed to do that? Answers the Gemara, for very, very practical reasons. Because Amar Ravashi Mishum de Mechse Keman de Azalechinga. Chinga in Aramaic is a marketplace. It looks like you're going to sell them. It doesn't look like you're taking them for a walk. It looks like you're going to sell them. I've got my whole brood. I'm taking all 10 of them, and I'm going to go sell them in the market. So it looks that way. It's very interesting. This touches on a halacha that I learned from my Rabbi in Hilchos Basar B'Chalav, a well-known shita of the Shach that deals with the following thing. I want you to think about this a little bit. We said the reason why you're not allowed to move camels in this way, where you're only holding the leash to camel number 1, camel 2 is connected to 3, and 3 is to 4, is it's Nisr Derabanan. We don't allow it because it looks like you're going to do business. But looks like you're going to do business is also Derabanan. Only doing business itself is Derabanan. So this is Mamash Gzera L'Gzera. But forget about that for a moment. The Shach in Yoredeya, the Shach highlights that what do we see from here? That we need to be worried about Maris Ayin, even by Dine Derabanan. He's saying it just looks bad. It just looks like Maris Ayin. Now, Maris Ayin is very interesting because Maris Ayin has a unique nature to it. When there is an Isser of Maris Ayin, the halacha is that it applies even Bechedrei Chadarim, even when you are by yourself in closed quarters with no one around. So this is the raya that the Shach uses to show that the din of Maris Ayin is a din that applies even by Dine Derabanan, even in a removed case, because the Yisr Derabanan is Mekach Memkar. So fine, you can't go to the marketplace with your animals, but it's just Maris Ayin, it just looks bad. So this is where the Shach learns it from. In that regard, just touching on this for a moment about Maris Ayin, we do have a din in the Ramah Shulchan Aruch that, and things are different now, I presume, because of our culture, but we do have a din in Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah that when one drinks something that looks like milk but isn't milk, or when you are eating it specifically with meat, so then the Ramah Shulchan Aruch writes that you should put some almonds, because they're talking about almond milk. He was talking about chalav shkedim there. You should put some almonds on the table to indicate that you're not a sheget, that you're actually keeping halacha. That's Maris Ayin. So does that apply nowadays? We have parv creamer, we have coffee rich. Seemingly things would change now because it's really not Maris Ayin anymore. We can tell, we know the difference. When we're sitting at a table, someone says, would you like a cup of coffee? And it comes in with a nice light tan color of coffee. Everybody knows you added parv creamer. Everybody knows that. So maybe things are different now, but that is a din in the Ramah and Shulchan Aruch. Let's continue in the Gemara. Aval Machnes, we said that you're not allowed to move the camels in that way, but you are allowed to carry all 10 leashes for all 10 camels in one hand. That's totally appropriate. Says the Gemara, Amar Avashi lo shanu ela le'inyan kilayim. The only thing that we have to be concerned about is kilayim. Says the Gemara, kilayim demai. Kilayim of what? What kilayim are you talking about? Ilema kilayim de adam. If you want to say that we're talking about the isra of kilayim for a person, namely that a person could be holding in his hand different ropes that are made of different materials and violate the isra of kilayim on him as if he's wearing a garment. Says the Gemara, that doesn't fly at all. We're not talking about kilay adam. Ve'atnan adam mutter im kulam lacharosh v'limshoch. He's allowed to pull on anything he wants. There's no isser kilayim by a human being who's holding on to leashes of different materials. Totally fine. There's nothing to worry about at all. Ella must be kilayim dechavalim, that you're not allowed to mix these naturally grown types of ropes. That's not allowed. But Tanya, that's not true either. Hatochev techifa achas eino chibor. So let's take a look at Rashi Dibur Hamaschel eino chibor. 3 lines from the bottom. Eino chibor. Let's go back one Rashi, excuse me. B'tchifa achas kegon ayadei machad. You've joined them together with a needle. Pamachas. Oh, shekoshar kesher echad. They're all tied in a knot. Eino chibor. We don't treat them as one. Tichsiv tzemer upishtim yachtov lo asra Torah el chibor yafe hamiskayim. We're not talking about holding them in your hand. That's not miskayim. That's not the kind of thing that lasts. So therefore, we can't be talking about kilayim of the garments that are in your hands, because unless you've braided them or tied them in a permanent way, it's not going to last. It's only meant to be practical. That's why you did it. So then the Gemara says, which one is it? If it's not kilayim of Adam and it's not kilayim of chavalim, of the ropes that you're holding, then what is the kilayim that you're worried about? Answers the Gemara, Le'olam kilayim de chavalim. We really are talking about the ropes. And here's pshat in what we're talking about. Provided, of course, that you don't tie them up in a very tight way, which would potentially be permanent, thereby raising the concern of kilayim, because once you merge these materials together, these materials that are really not allowed to be together, so then you really have touched on a serious halachic issue. Says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, we have another caveat. As long as the rope that you're holding, the leash, does not extend in your hand more than one tefach. Again, a tefach is about 3 to 4 inches. It's a very small amount of rope. Take a look at Rashi, Dibur HaMaschel, Shelo Yetze Chevel. This is a very important Rashi. Rashi, Shelo Yetze Chevel, Rosh HaChevel Lo Yetze Mitachas Yado, Tefach Lemata, Dedami Kimishinose Biyado, Velo Mischazia, Shehi Me Avsar Hagmalim. So we're talking about the following. I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's say that that I have a leash here, and I'm holding the leash, and this is attached to an animal. Okay, so this you can't even see it; it's off the screen. So if the back of the leash is coming off my hand more than a tefach, halachically speaking, that's problematic, because that looks like you're carrying. I understand this side is connected to an animal, this side is not. That's fine. But on the other side, it looks like a new entity, and that is what the Gemara is referring to. We are concerned that if one were to be carrying a leash in that particular way, where there's extra rope hanging off the back side of your hand, not the side of the rope that's touching the animal, but just off the back side of your hand, we're concerned that it looks like carrying, and that's this new caveat of Shmuel, with 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Shmuel, uvilvad shelo yetze chevel mitachas yado tefach. We have another Mari Makom that Shmuel says really we're talking about 2 tefach that's falling off the back of your hand, not just one. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi.
Can you wrap it around your hand? Would that be carrying or what?
That's a great question, Rabbi. I think that would be permissible. I'm not saying in a psak way. I'm just saying, just talking and learning. It seems like it would be permissible, because if you look at the language of Rashi, Dibur Hamaschel Shelo Yetze Chevel, he says Rosh HaChevel Lo Yetze. Why not? He says toward the end of that Rashi, V'lo mischazia shehi me afsar hagmalim. It doesn't appear that it's part of that leash, but if you have something, anyone who's walked a strong dog before, sometimes you have to wrap it around your hand, around your wrist a couple of times. I presume that would be considered a normal usage. And not only that, but we have another reference to this that we saw yesterday about karuch around the neck of the animal, which it was very clear what that was for. So over there, we saw that it was clearly part of the leash. I presume we would assume the same thing here. That's a great question. So says the Gemara, what's pshat? We have a contradiction by Shmuel. One says it's only 1 tefach that's falling off the back of your hand, and that's a problem. And one says it's 2 tefach. So says the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom, and Dalar Marel from Rabbi, Hashda Amar Shmuel tefach, but Tana de Shmuel tefachayim. Now that we see this contradiction in terms that Shmuel said it's only 1 tefach, and Beis Shmuel says that it's 2 tefach, so it must be Shmuel halacha l'maisa asala shmuina. Shmuel was just coming to teach me the din. Medina, technically speaking, it is 2 tefach. However, I'm concerned, and therefore I'm going to be a little bit strict. And Rashi here on the bottom indicates as much, but we're not going to read that Rashi. You can learn it on your own time. That Rashi teaches us that really Shmuel held that 2 tefach was really the parameter by which one should not allow that amount of the leash to fall off the back of your hand, but he's strict to say that it should be 1. Medina, it's 2, up to 2, but we should try to keep only 1. And now we are turning to the top of Nandal and Mabez. Says the Gemara, Tanya, we have another brisa that says, what does this brisa say? We've been talking about Shmuel and falling off the back of your hand. Here we said you're not allowed to lift it off the ground 1 tefach. Or I'm sorry, the opposite, that it has to be at least a tefach off the ground. But it's a one tefach from within a tefach, we treat that as part of the ground. So it says the Gemara, that Bryce is only talking about the rope that's between your hand and the animal. What Shmuel was talking about was rope that was not between your hand and the animal. It was off the back of your hand, and it looked like you were carrying something. So that was not what this Bryce is talking about, so no contradiction. Next Mishnah, 2 lines down on Nun Daled Amud Beis. The Mishnah says, "Ein chamor yotze b'mirdas bizman she'en kshur." We saw this Gemara already, and we're not going to analyze it again more than 3 words in the Gemara. That a chamor is not allowed to go out with a blanket on top of it when it's not tied. Below bezug afal pishahu pakuk. The animal is not allowed to go out with a bell on it, even if the bell is already stuffed. Below besulam shibit savaro, not with a ladder that's on his neck. This ladder is a reference to some type of brace when there was an injury to the animal. Below beratua shibaraglo, not with the strap that's wrapped around its leg. But the ein hatarnagolam yotzin bechutin below beratua shibaraglehem. The tarnagolam chickens were not allowed to go out with certain ropes that were wrapped around their leg. We'll see what all of this means in the Gemara. Then as zacharam yotzin ba'agala shatachas ha'aliyah shelahen. The males were not allowed to go out with this tiny little wagon of sorts that would be put under their tail, because sometimes the tail would scrape on the ground. So they put something under it to make sure that the animal wouldn't get any lacerations. So that's not allowed either. We'll see what that word means. That a Rachel, the user, were not allowed to go out chanunos. We'll see what that means as well, that they were not allowed to go out in gimon, which is a reference to a yoke. Below para or hakupar. This is a particular animal skin. They couldn't go out with any animal skins on them. Cows, at least, could not go out with animal skins. They also couldn't go out with any materials that were between the eyes of that para. And then the Mishnah closes with a story. Paraso shel Rabbi Eliezer ben Elazar ben Azariah haisa yotze b'ritzua sheben karneh shelo b'ratzon chachamim. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, this is very strange. Big tzaddik. What does this mean? He allowed the animal to go out with a ritzua ben karneh, with a decorative type of strap that was on the animal's head that was visible to all. Shelo b'ratzon chachamim, and he did this against the will of the chachamim. Says the Gemara, my taima. Why is it that we have our din of ein chamor yotze b'merdas? So says the Gemara, kid amran, like we learned previously. What is it that we learned previously? Take a look at Rashi just to our left. The first one in the Gemara. Right where we are. This we learned yesterday, where we said that it must be a case where the animal was not tied from Erev Shabbos, because not the previous Mishnah immediately, but a couple of Mishnahs ago indicated that it is permissible for a donkey for a chamor to have the mardas, to have the blanket put on top of him, as long as it was kshur me'erev Shabbos. Okay, next in the Gemara, what's the reason why the animal was not allowed to go out with a bell, even though the bell was stuffed? So namely, the piece of the bell that actually made noise wasn't making any noise. There's no hashmas kol, there's no avsha, there's nothing that's really concerning. So what was the problem? Says the Gemara, same language like we saw earlier about the 10 strung together camels. It looks like you're going to the marketplace, and that's not appropriate. And we don't relate to a lot of these things because this was not our culture. We're not a herding animal culture, but apparently these things were well understood, that if you're going to be putting something inside the bell, it's an indicator that you're not looking for that animal. You're obviously taking it somewhere, because the bell helps you to find out where your animal is when it moves. So once you stuff the animal's bell, it's obvious that you're not trying to find it, which means, what are you doing with it? So clearly you're going to sell it. Below basulam shebet savaro, not with a ladder that's on its neck. Amar Rav Huna, Bei loa. This was something around the cheeks of the animal. Lamai avdele. What was it for? That was only for when the animal had an injury. So that the animal wouldn't claw at the injury and make it worse. It was some type of muzzle that would protect the animal's face. As well, the animal was not allowed to go out with a strap that was wrapped around its leg. This was put there to prevent the animal from moving its leg in a way that would cause for damage, and that was not allowed. The damage was not allowed, but that the nature, say it more clearly, the reason the ritzua was there in the first place was to prevent damages, but still the animal can't go out on Shabbos with that, because it would be considered a problem of shvisas behemto. Next, we're just about halfway down. Veina tarnagol and yotzin b'chutin. The chickens were not allowed to go out with strings attached to their legs. They would make sure that my chickens always had a string on their legs that were the color blue. Yours were red, his were purple. So everybody had a color to make sure that they know whose animals were whose, and that was why the chutin were there. Next Gemara, what was the ritua for the chickens for? This was something that limited their movements as well. The lolisperu, taf and shin in Aramaic are interchangeable, to not break the mane, to not break mane in Aramaic as kalim or utensils, to make sure that the animal did not break anything. We said that the chickens, the male chickens, were not allowed to go out with an agala, some type of contraption that was under the tail of the animal to prevent lacerations. Lachmetan al yasa, to make sure that the tail doesn't get injured. So even though the animal may have needed it, that's fine. You can have it on the animal, but the animal cannot go out in public on Shabbos. That's going to be problematic. What does chanunos mean? Says the Gemara halfway down, Yossi Ravacha Barula Kamed Rav Chizav Yossi V'Gomer Yishasha goes as in Osa from the time that the animal is first sheared, Tomnin La Azek. They would saturate. An azek is like a rag of some kind or a towel. They would saturate some kind of towel, the shemen, in oil, manichin al padachta. They put it on top of the animal, so that the animal wouldn't be too cold. You just took off all of its fur, so the animal may well be cold. And therefore, they were allowed to cover the animal, no problem. If that's the case, you're no different than Mar Ukva. What does that mean? Take a look at Rashi, 2-3 inches below where we are. Rashi, Asisa Mar Ukva. You're treating this animal with so much respect. It's unbelievable. Why would you be doing that? As the Gemara, Yossi Rav Papa Bar Shmuel, when the animal was crouching down to deliver a child, then you can take shnei izkin, you can take 2 rags, and then shel shemen, and saturate them in oil. One is going to be on the head, and one is going to be on the body, on the rechem, by the stomach, where the animal had a baby, to make sure that she stays warm. Says Gemara, Amar Le Rav Nachman in Kana Sisa Yalta. Then you're treating, Yalta was Rav Nachman's wife. This is pointed out here by the Meforshim. Yalta is a well-known female personality, one of the few. Bruria is probably the most famous, Rav Meir's wife, but this is Yalta. So Yalta, then you're treating the animal like Yalta would. Ella, it must be something else. There was a type of wood that the seafarers would know about, and it was called chanun. And what did they do? Umevi and kisem, they'd bring a small chip of this wood, and they put it near the nose of the animal, so that the animal would sneeze. And when the animal would sneeze, the yiplu darne rosha, then all the bugs would jump off of the animal when the animal would sneeze. Why is it that this whole discussion about, if you look back up 10 lines where the sugya started, at the 2 dots, it says, those are female. The ewes were female. That if you're saying that all of this is about the bugs that are on the animal, and there's a piece of wood out in the ocean that people were using to make sure that the animal would then sneeze and it would take off all of the bugs, if that's the case, why is it only females? It should apply to men too. So it says the males too. So it says the Gemara, no. Because the males fight with each other, playfully at least, but because they were fighting, the men and all the bugs that were on them, they would fall off on their own. And Shimon Nazira Amar Kisma Derisma. Shimon Nazira said that we're talking about a wood that was made out of rotem, and it was a different kind of wood that made the animal sneeze. Ask the Gemara. Bishlama de Rav Huna. I understand the opinion of Rav Huna that the reason why we called it chanunos is because the name of the wood was a chanun. I got it. Bishlama de Rav Huna. Hainu de katani chanunos, because the name of the wood was chanun. Elo the Rabbanan, but according to the Rabbanan, my chanunos. Why did you call it chanunos when you're putting on all the rags? What's chanunos? I don't understand. It says the Gemara of de'avdinan lehu milsa de merachaminan alayhu. Because when you're putting on these garments on top of the animal, the oil-saturated rags, when you're doing that, that was an act of china. That was an act of kindness. You're being a merachim. So chanun berachum, one of those words. So Because of that, they were called chanunos. So just looking back up at the 2 dots above where we started in the middle, ein rachelim yotzos chanunos, they're not allowed to go on chanunos. So there's 2 different shitas. One is with the wood chips, and one is with the rags that one put on those animals for the sake of ensuring that the animal is warm, either because it was just sheared and therefore might be cold, or because it just had a baby and therefore needs an extra dose of warmth. Either way, even if the animal is allowed to wear them for other reasons, but an animal is not allowed to go out with them because of shvisas behemto. Just a couple more small mini sugyas. We're going to go till 6 lines until the bottom of the page. Says the Gemara, "Be'ein ha'egel yotze begimon." As mentioned in the Mishnah, this is referring to a yoke that's put on top of the animal. The egel, the calf, is not allowed to have a gimon. My egel begimon. What does it mean? An egel, a calf with a gimon. Amar Rav Huna bar Nira. This is talking about a smaller yoke that's put on the animal. Amar Rabbi Lazar, my mashma dahai gimon lishna de meikaf. How do you know that the word gimon is referring to a yoke at all? Says the Gemara, because of the pasuk tichsiv. Because the pasuk says, let me just read it correctly. Halachof ke'agmon rosho. It's going to have a curved head. So the yokes were curved to wrap around the shoulders. If you could imagine the cow is going to be pulling something, it wasn't necessarily tied, but it had these hooks that were brought over its shoulder so that when it pushed forward, it could drag behind it the plow or whatever it was plowing. So that's how we know that the language of Gimon is a language of a yoke. Continues the Gemara, the first of the very long lines, of the middle width lines, I should say, the last line's longer. Below para be'or hakupar, we said that you're not allowed to put animal skins on top of a cow. The only time that was true was to prevent the animal from leeches or from other machlokas. Rashi Tosfos here. Rashi seems to say that they're leeches who might be interested in the milk of the udders. Why? So Tosfos says leeches don't drink milk. Leeches drink blood. So therefore, it must be a different animal. It must be a different type of bug. Nevertheless, that's why the para was wearing this type of leather, this type of material. But if it was in order to prevent that, but then under those circumstances, the animal was not allowed to go out to Rosh Hashanah. Next, one is not allowed to have an animal that has a ritzua ben karneha, that has a decorative strap in between its horns. Ilirav, we saw the sugya already. What about wearing things that are decorative? Says the Gemara, Ilirav, according to Rab, bein l'noi, bein l'shamer aser, Rab said that both things that are decorative are problematic, and as well, for extra shmira, they're problematic. Ila Shmuel, and according to Shmuel, l'noi aser, he also agreed. And l'shamer mutter manavshach, everyone agrees that this is aser to do on Shabbos. The last mini sugya of the night, and then we will wrap up. Paraso Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. We said that he had one cow. V'chada para havyale. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah only had one cow. Check out this guy's bank account. V'ha'amar Rav, v'amri la'amar of Yehuda Amar Rav. Some say it was Rav, and some say it was his Talmud of Yehuda. Tresar alfe egle. There were 12,000 calves. Have a meiser. That was the 10%. That was the 10% of Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah's collection. So he had 120,000 calves. That's a remarkable number of animals, and he gave 12,000 a year in Meiser. Have a Meiser Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah may edre kol shata v'shata every year. That's what he gave. So it must not be that way. Says the Gemara, Tana lo shelo haisa ela shel shchenaso haisa. Must be that it belonged to his neighbor and not to him. This also answers the troubling question in the Mishnah of how Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah went against, how Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah went against the Chachamim in the Mishnah. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah doesn't go against the Chachamim. So this answers that question. It was talking about his shachen. It was actually his neighbor's animal. Why did they say that the animal was his? Because the neighbor didn't complain about it, so he just allowed it to be called under his name. But nevertheless, the animal, in fact, belonged to a shachen. I know there's a lot of back and forth here, a lot of quick and rapid and small sugyas, but this is basically a lot of the nuance and detail about what garments are allowed to be worn and for what reasons. And we will pause here tonight and pick up with both Daf Nun Hey and Nun Vav Amud Aleph tomorrow night.